Thank you so much for joining us today, Danielle. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Doing all right. Glad to be here. So I'm excited. I'm not going to see it this weekend. I'm seeing SpongeBob the Musical next weekend. How has your rehearsal process for SpongeBob the Musical been so far?
Well, we've been rehearsing since early December with a break from over the holidays because we are a community-based organization that does a lot of our rehearsals out of the schools.
Sure.
So it's been a long go of it. We also had some fun snow days in there, which was very entertaining, but we made them up on the back end. And so tonight we are having our final dress rehearsal. So it has been a very long process, but everything seems to be coming together pretty well for our dress rehearsals this week. Little tweaks here and there, but we have arrived, I guess, whether come good or come bad, we are here. So
you made it.
Yeah, we made it. So excited for our final dress rehearsal tonight.
How familiar were you with SpongeBob before being cast in the show?
Not at all. I actually,
Fair.
My only exposure to SpongeBob, without dating myself, was that I did not watch it as a child, because it was not in my age range, but my son has started watching it, who is 11. So I had some vague, inklings of how it worked, but I watched the musical online when the show was posted. And I thought, this is the weirdest, strangest thing I have ever seen. I sit on the board for Bloomfield Players, so I was going to just be a board member. And after assisting with a day of auditions, I was like, maybe. And so I did end up auditioning and being cast as Sandy, which was a huge surprise. But it did give me a little more insight into the different characters in SpongeBob, and got to rely on my son as a source for character development, which is very entertaining, asking your 11-year-old the motivations of a squirrel.
I'm sure. That's not the usual conversation you have with them.
Right. No, it's usually, this is a joke you probably shouldn't be watching because it's a little over your head, but I think it's hilarious, which is one of the things I have kind of liked a lot about SpongeBob, both the musical and the TV show, is that there's that hidden humor, the innuendo in there that I find funny still as an adult. And there's plenty of stuff in there for kids to understand and learn about and know and get the story concept from. So it has been an experience getting to dive deeper, pun not intended, but sorry about that, into the world of SpongeBob and Bikini Bottom.
That's one of the things that I love the most about animated shows and movies is that there's such a level, there's like a humor level for adults, and then there's a humor level for kids, and both can enjoy it.
And I think that's true of both the cartoon and the show. There are still things that in the wings where they are happening that I am not a part of, that as an adult, I hear them and I have to stifle a giggle and hope my mic is not on, because they're still funny to me as an adult. And the kids kind of look at me sideways and I'm like, it's not that deep, but it's still enough to make me crack a smile, crack a laugh there. So, it still rings true in the musical.
So what is the story of SpongeBob the Musical, and how does Sandy, the squirrel, your character, how does she kind of factor into that overall story?
So let me see if I can give a relatively quick plot synopsis. Bikini Bottom, the place where SpongeBob and Patrick and Sandy and all the sea creatures live, is in danger of total chaotic destruction from a volcano. And so the job of Sandy and SpongeBob and Patrick is to help stop the volcano. Sandy the squirrel is both science and STEM inclined, as well as inclined to martial arts. That would be where we differ. And they are tasked with preventing this from happening and making a team that has brains, brawn, and SpongeBob spends a lot of the time in the show trying to figure out what his talent is that he brings to the team. And part of the subplot that goes along with it is that the sea creatures that live under the sea, Sandy is a mammal that comes from the surface. And so because sometimes in times of chaos, we question and distrust things we don't understand or know, the town of Bikini Bottom, where she has lived, turns against her. And they, a lot of the chants throughout the show are blame the squirrel. So they've decided that it is Sandy the squirrel's fault that the volcano is going to erupt. And so throughout the course of their adventures, Sandy has to make sure she stays safe and decide whether or not she is going to help save Bikini Bottom. She ultimately does happen to agree to help, but then there is a falling out between Patrick and SpongeBob, which makes things even more chaotic and problematic as they try and stop this volcano from erupting. So I'm not going to give away the ending because that would be just spoiler alert.
Right.
But that is where I will leave you as will they, won't they, will they save the town? Who knows? But if you'd like to come see it and find out, be my guest.
That's kind of like that. There's a little bit of that darkness there, though, of like for Sandy, of having to like be persecuted for being a mammal that doesn't come from the sea, you know?
Actually, our music director, Nick, had pointed out at one point when we were discussing when he was just toward the end of the show, when things are changing, and we were saying we need to get back into rehearsal to go combat the racism. And the kids looked at him, and many of them are older, 8 and older is our cutoff, looked at him and they were like, racism? And so we had to have a quick little conversation about how these parallel one another in real life in age appropriate terms. And because it was something that, good or bad, part of SpongeBob went over their head.
Right.
So having them make that connection and being able to sort of explain that to them was kind of awesome and amazing to sort of see the light bulbs start going off and figuring out, oh yeah, like most of them had exposure to that topic at school and they knew racism bad, right?
Right.
But didn't see the parallel when we're talking about a musical full of jokes and puns and laughter and songs. And so being able to bring that theme to their understanding was kind of awesome.
So how has this role challenged you as an actor?
Oh my goodness. Well, I am a solid background ensemble dancer. That is generally where I have been with some minor parts here and there, supporting roles, I guess, if you will. And so this has been quite a challenge in terms of just the volume of things I need to remember. I know that as an ensemble member, you have to generally remember more songs and more dances, but you are with other people who are also remembering those things, and you can sort of rely on your ensemble counterparts to help you through that if you get lost. And when someone casts you as a lead, we'll find out whether or not that was a good choice very soon. You have a bigger responsibility than I anticipated in carrying the show plot along. Not that the leads carry the whole show, but you are responsible for making sure you say the right lines at the right times and not leaving critical orchestra cues out, not leaving critical plot points out, even things as it seems as silly as props that are critical to continue the story. And so the responsibility of it is something that was a little bit shocking to me, and is something that has been a challenge that I've enjoyed a little bit. I do get a little anxious every time that I step on stage, more so than when I had supporting roles or ensemble roles, just because I want to make sure that the show does well, and I don't want it to be my fault if it doesn't because I forgot something or didn't do something. So that has been incredibly challenging. I've been spending a lot of time. I recorded my lines, and so I'm pressing them on my voice memos back and forth on my way to and from work to make sure that I get that time in to remember my lines and songs and things. It's really hard to play with a rehearsal track while you're in the car, so that was a good time recording those a cappella. But that, just the volume has been quite a challenge. I mean, character developing a squirrel is also been a little bit, but I do have the very reliable 11-year-old source who's been a great support in that area.
Speaking of the music, what is the music like specifically for Sandy? Like, I know that there's all different kinds of artists that have gone into making this music, but what is that for Sandy?
So, yes, super eclectic. Love that about the show, that it doesn't really fall into any one genre. That for Sandy's big number, which is in the second act called Chop to the Top, it was written by Lady A, and so it has a distinct country vibe. Sandy is a squirrel originally from the great state of Texas, and so she has some country down-home roots and has a bit of an accent, which I casually maintain throughout the show.
It's live theater. That's the best part,
live
right?
Theater. And so yes, it's the song that is her prominent song does have a bit of a country vibe to it, which I fully love and support. Country is one of my favorite jams and my eclectic choices in music. So that is her vibe through songs and for her specific songs. And then like the rest of them are written by so many different artists. It is it's like pulling a song genre out of a bag every time that you are presenting a new song in the musical, which does help keep it really interesting, and doesn't really fall into any one music genre. And so there's really something for everybody, which is kind of awesome.
We love that because then it brings more people into something they can all approve, they can connect with.
Yeah. So
how do you get into the mindset of Sandy the squirrel?
Well, I can honestly say I probably haven't thought as deeply about it as I should. I think more so the personification of Sandy than the actual squirrel mentality, I guess.
Sure.
Both in the Broadway presentation and in our presentation, the animals have been personified. And so less so about the mammal. Well, I guess the mammal part is important, but less so about becoming a squirrel and more so about her major character points, where she's from, what she enjoys, what she's good at, science and martial arts being at the top of that. I am a first grade teacher, so being a person who tries to help support students in STEM, especially women in STEM, I love that part of this role. And I think that connecting that piece, that scientific piece, that part that really sort of a little bit of a know-it-all at times, and sure, sometimes that knowledge becomes very valuable. So trying to find a balance between that as well as the shift in the feelings of the townspeople and how that's kind of reflected. So I think that holding on to those two core things as part of her personality, her love of science and martial arts, and now feeling like an outsider are what I've based most of this character development on, as well as a questionable accent.
And the costume, Sandy has such an iconic costume.
She does. Ours is slightly different. I do get to wear a really cool spacesuit that got patches and buttons on it. My favorite one is the one that says I'm a level 1 figure skater, which I did not notice. One of the kids did. But also I get to wear some amazing cowboy boots with my spacesuit, which I very much love. And that really does complete the outfit. Surprisingly, just a spacesuit and some cowboy boots, and we have a character. And our final dress rehearsal today, we actually are not doing costumes, but I probably am going to put on my cowboy boots because I do feel a little bit different when I'm wearing them as a character. So to help kind of keep in that vibe, I may or may not, but also walking in them and making sure I don't kick anyone or anything with the end of them is very helpful.
I mean, when in doubt, always wear the cowboy boots.
Always wear the cowboy boots. Yeah, for sure.
What has been a highlight of your time on this production?
Well, I think being cast was a bit of a highlight and a bit of a surprise. But I have returned to the stage with several friends that I have met through both Bloomfield Players and through other local community theater that I've been a part of. And I've done work out of St. Dunstan's and Stagecrafters as well. So there's a lot of overlap, as I've discovered in my time in returning to the stage. I took quite a hiatus. Goodness. I took quite a hiatus between high school and an adult in community theater. And so getting back into that groove has gotten me the opportunity to be a part of several different community theater groups. One of the favorite highlights is that always is that I get to do some stage work with my daughter. She is not currently on stage. We have done 3 musicals together in the last 2 years, I believe. And it has been quite my favorite part. But this year, because of a difficult travel softball schedule, she was not able to join the production, but is joining us backstage on tech. And so still getting to share those moments, getting to be near her and learning some more about theater. That's really both what I still continue to love about theater is she enjoys this, I promise. Having her come and be a part of it with me. It's built some amazing traditions. One of our favorite being midnight tacos, and really has helped us kind of find a thing together, even if it's not the same as it was previously. So that is always the highlight when I get to do shows with her and kind of build our own family tradition.
Awesome. 2 more questions, I promise, and then
Absolutely.
I'll let you go.
I'll talk less. I'm so sorry.
No, you're okay. What themes of SpongeBob the Musical resonate the most with you?
Well, I think that the one we kind of already touched on was the kind of subterfuge of discrimination, right? Maybe less of racism than just general discrimination against a particular character for being different than someone else. And I think that is a theme that resonates across from adults to children. And I do think it's one of the most important things that comes out of the show, especially in our current climate and the way that people are reacting in our real world to people who appear to be different than one another. And I think that this particular theme doesn't necessarily beat you over the head with it, but it does make you think as you start to look at things as simple as one of the lines is that she has lungs. And it's so small, so simple, but so many of our hangups about other people or people when we are experiencing prejudice or discrimination, it can be about one thing, one physical difference, one invisible difference, one disability, one anything. And it could be as something very simple, and to be able to find a way to work through things that are maybe not comfortable for us in ways that really do help bond together as a community. And I think that that's kind of an important part of the show.
You know, I think it also probably answers the next question too, of what do you hope audiences walk away from with this musical?
Look at me reading minds.
Because it's really, that sounds like that is the universal message that SpongeBob the Musical is kind of giving, is let's not hate each other just because we can, you know?
Yeah. Just, you know, be kind to people, not just because they're different. I think the other theme that I really like that is more SpongeBob's part of the character development is that when we can't find the thing that we are good at, or we don't always know what we are good at, part of finding yourself and having friends that support you to help you find yourself. And those people who are truly your friends are people that even after a rough patch, you can come back to and find a way through. And those people will help support you in your endeavors to find yourself. And I think that that's another important theme, because I don't always, even as an adult, know who I am or what I want to be. And finding people you can rely on, finding people that you can trust, that help support the most authentic version of yourself, I think is another really important theme throughout the show, and is something that I feel like speaks particularly to those littles that I love, both at home and at school, is finding a good friend and what does it mean to be a good friend. Because I will tell you, middle school is fraught with
Oh yeah.
learning about being a friend and what that means and who is your friend and who's not your friend. And so that one I hope resonates a little bit more with my daughter.
Well, perfect. Danielle, thank you so much for your time. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much. I'm so excited to get to do this. I really, really appreciate it.
So SpongeBob the Musical runs from March 7th through the 16th at Bloomfield Players. So get your tickets now. We'll see you there.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, you too.